We ready to start?
We're ready.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Coffee with Father James. You can see my coffee steaming. You see the steam coming off it. It's because it's so blooming cold out here. Don't be fooled by the sun, by how sunny it is. Sometimes there's more to a thing than meets the eye. I guess that's what I kind of want to talk to you about. Last weekend, if you were at church or watching on live stream, we announced that this coming week, this next Sunday, we have our next monthly family faith formation gathering. And I explained very briefly at the end of Mass that this is the new model of faith formation that we have in place post-pandemic. Everything was shut down during the pandemic, but we didn't go back to what we had before. What did we have before? We had age-based catechism classes in classrooms. It was a model that we inherited out of the Catholic school system. We used to have a Catholic school system many decades ago in Nova Scotia, and we still have Catholic schools to some degree in other parts of the country. And if you're watching from other places, you may have your own system. And so religious education is relegated to the classroom. And it's a model of handing on the faith that worked for a long time, ever since Catholic schools were established mostly by an immigrant Catholic community in the UK, in Ireland. Well, they weren't immigrants, Irish Catholics weren't immigrants, but they set up a system once they had emancipation in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and United States. So based on Catholic schools. So the question I want to look at is not just why, if you haven't yet connected up with this program, why you should do it, but why are we doing it at all? Why didn't we go back to doing what it was before? But so before I can answer that question, I've got to ask a bigger question, and that is, what's it all about anyway? What is the purpose of faith formation? What's the purpose of a religious education program? What was the ultimate purpose of creating Catholic schools and different institutions? Well, the ultimate purpose was to form Christian believers, committed Christian believers, to make and form committed Catholics to live out their faith as contributing members of society who would influence society to be salt and light, as Jesus says, salt and light. Salt is a preservative. It impacts the culture. We were to impact and preserve the culture. We were to be light in a world that is filled with darkness. So the whole purpose of all of our institutions was just as we say at the end of Mass, go to serve the Lord, go out and transform the world. Was the purpose of our institutions was to train followers of Jesus, to be faithful followers of Jesus who would gather at the Eucharist and be sent out to impact the world. And for many decades, that's what happened. And then the 60s happened, in the 70s and the 80s. And I would argue that model of faith formation, which really relied on three legs. If you think of a stool, three legs of a stool. There was school, or Sunday school, so the classroom teaching experience where kids were taught information. There was the family, where faith was lived as a essential component of family life. And there was Sunday Mass, weekly Mass, those three together. And that system worked as long as, like any stool, as long as you have three legs, it'll work. But by the time the 60s came, those legs started to disintegrate a little bit, and I think it really stopped working a long time ago. See, I'm not picking on our particular parish. It was like this in all parishes, because fundamentally the world around us changed. See, there's a lot of committed people who worked very hard in the system, even up until very recently. And when I critique a model of way of doing things, I'm not critiquing the people who worked sincerely and worked so hard in those systems. The reason why the model doesn't work anymore because the world around us has changed significantly. Number one, that triad, the three legs of the stool, even in past parishes, we found out that actually only a minority, 20 to 30% of the kids enrolled in Sunday school classes actually ever went to church, ever went to Mass. And I can't say in any sure way how faith was lived by the families, but I would say that probably, I mean, if Sunday Mass, if the central commandment of Jesus, the most important thing he told us to do the night before he died, do this in remembrance of me. That gathering of the family of faith around the banquet of the Eucharist, if that's not important, then it's quite possible that faith probably isn't being lived out at home. So things began to break down. And look, the ultimate proof is in the pudding. We're called to be a church that makes disciples of all nations and teaches them to observe all of the commandments Jesus gave us, including do this in memory of me, and to baptize and celebrate the sacraments. If that's our measure of our fruitfulness, of the success of what we do, then we're not doing very well, because think of all the young people that have been formed just at this parish over the last 20 years who have gone through our catechism programs. Where are they? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're all going to Mass somewhere else, but don't think so. I think there's been a huge hemorrhaging of people because we put people through a program. We made them jump through hoops and learn a bunch of information that didn't seem relevant to their lives. I mean, I remember this myself. I remember in grade 7, I was in Scotland at the time, but in a religious education class, and I believed in God, I believed in Jesus, I went to church, but the whole thing of being forced to learn information about someone who seemed to me to be, not that relevant to my life just made me angry, made me resentful. And so, yeah, for me, confirmation was a thing to get over and done with, just as it is in many places for many young people. It's not confirmation, it's graduation. I mean, what is meant to be full initiation into the church becomes ritualized apostasy. You sign off so that you never have to set foot in church again, at least until your wedding day. And then after that, your funeral. But that's a failure of the system. The system has failed us. And so the question is, why do we continue to cling to a system that no longer works? I think it was Henry Ford who gave the definition, the famous definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, we can't just say, the thing we've been doing that hasn't worked, let's go back and do it again, except this time, let's try really hard. Let's try harder. Let's be more sincere. Let's even put more resources, more time and money into this. If it doesn't work, changing the tires on a broken down car isn't going to make your car work. We need a new car. We need a new model. Now, the way we're doing it here now, is it the perfect solution? No, it's not. Is it the best way to do it? I don't know. Probably not. But the only way we're going to learn to do it better is by doing it the way we're doing it, and then to come back and say, how can we improve this? How can we do this together? But what we're trying to do, there's a couple of principles here, very quickly. We're trying to observe what the church teaches. And the church tells us that the primary responsibility for the education and formation of children in the faith belongs to the parents. Not to a Catholic school system, but to the parents. And so what's our model doing right now? We want to make this family-centric. We want to empower parents to play the primary role in forming the faith of their kids. And we want to bring different families together so that young people can be exposed to faith lived out and expressed by different families. And we want to make a distinction between a general catechesis and faith formation that's distinct from sacramental preparation. And finally, in our system with sacramental preparation, we've disconnected particular sacraments from specific ages. We used to have, you may remember, at this age or this grade level, you got this sacrament, then this sacrament. We want to do away with that. And so what you may ask is the basis of knowing when someone is ready. Well, readiness. Readiness. And the question then, the pastoral challenge becomes, let's help families be ready. And in order to do that, we've got to welcome them where they are. We've got to meet them where they are and bring them forward. So, look, I could talk for another hour on this. Don't worry, I'm not going to. But there's a little bit of history on the model that we used to use and that many churches are still using, and why we're not using that anymore, and why we're not going back to it. Is what we've got perfect? Will it be improved? Can it be improved? Yes. Yes and yes. And the only way for us to be able to improve it and make it better is through your participation and your feedback for us to help us do this. Please pray for all of our families who will be gathering, and pray for our young people that they may not just learn information about God, about Jesus, but may they have a transformative experience of Jesus Christ, who is Lord, who is alive through the power of the Holy Spirit, and the most exciting, dynamic thing they'll ever experience in life, and that they may become living members of the community of faith. God bless.